Hi, my name is Katrina Green and I'm the Operations Manager at Ray White Morris & Co Property Management. Today I just want to talk you through some of the terms and conditions in the Residential Tenancies Agreement. We want to be able to explain to you our obligations to you as your landlord and property manager, and also our expectations of you as a tenant. So page 1 of the agreement is reasonably self-explanatory. On here we'll have the address of the property, the date that your tenancy starts, what type of tenancy it is, if it's a fixed term or a periodic, and if it's a fixed term, what that end date will. We'll also supply you with all of our details regarding where you can find us, and of course all of our contact details as agent for the landlord. As well as that, we'll talk about the tenancy costs. So that's what the weekly rent is and what the bond to be paid is. Our bank account number is also included. Page 2 is where we record your details. So we will have all adults living in the property's details recorded here. So name and all of your contact details, including email addresses and of course phone numbers. It's really important that you check that we've got all these details correct. As well as that, if you have additional people living in the property not on the tenancy agreement, such as children, this will be where that is recorded, and also what vehicles you'll have at the property. Page 3 tells us whether or not you have a pet that is authorised at the property. So, for example, if we have allowed a dog, perhaps it's a greyhound, and we have named that one dog, a greyhound, is allowed at the property. If you have anything you want to discuss at the time with your property manager, now is the time to do so. From there we move into the terms and conditions of the agreement. So I will explain these a little bit more thoroughly to you. Initially we talk about the agreement, and you confirm as the tenant that you agree that all the information that you've provided to us forms part of the tenancy. So all of your tenancy application information will transfer onto this tenancy agreement, and you advise that this is all true and correct. You consent us to do any application checks, and we've already done those, so you have already consented that. You advise that dangerous substances are not to be stored at the property. So this means don't store illegal substances, clearly, or petrol in an unauthorised safety-specific container will also not be allowed at the property. The Residential Tenancies Act is the jurisdiction and will apply to this tenancy. The tenants are liable for any debt due at the end of the tenancy should there be a debt of rent or anything like that. The purpose of the collection of the information is clearly so that we can, if need be, use this information to go to the tenancy tribunal. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but if it does, then we are authorised by this agreement to use that and provide that to the tenancy tribunal, as well as if there was a debt to any debt collection parties. This information is provided by you to us, the landlord, the agent for the landlord, and also the owner of the property. Smoke alarms and escape from fire. So it is our responsibility of the landlord to provide a working smoke alarm for you. However, you must not tamper or cause any damage to this smoke alarm. This means don't remove batteries. If you have a long life smoke alarm, then you will not encounter this, but if you have a battery operated one, it is really important that you have a spare battery so that if it does beep at you in the middle of the night, you can replace it. You must also not block any exits from the property that you may require in an emergency to escape from fire. A statement of intent, if provided, is a statement in relation to the Healthy Homes Act. However, all of properties for new tenancies will now supply also a Healthy Home Statement, which I will go through for you as well. The property is to be used for residential purposes only. Nothing illegal or unlawful may be happening at the property, and also no commercial business is allowed without previous authorisation through us, your property manager. Where a specific car parking space has been allocated to you as the tenant, then you may only use this, and please ensure you don't allow any vehicles to be parked on lawns or anywhere else that cause damage. Call out charge. So if there is a call out charge to the property, what this means is if we've arranged a tradesperson to contact you, say a plumber, they make contact and arrange an appointment, but you're not there to let them in. There will be a charge for this, and if so, this charge will be incurred to you, the tenant, for not staying there for that appointment. Carpets, drapes and curtains. It is your responsibility as a tenant to ensure that these are clean and in good condition at the end of the tenancy. Collection costs. If there is a collection cost at the end of the tenancy by way of a debt, a monetary order through the tenancy tribunal, then you will be accountable for that as well as any debt recovery costs that may be incurred. Conditional meth clause. Essentially what this means is if that we are in the process of undertaking a meth test before you move into the property, and at the time of you signing this agreement we have not yet had the results in. This is conditional upon the results coming back at a level we would deem acceptable for you to move in the property. There are several parts to this that your property manager will explain if worst case scenario happens and we are unable to move you into the property. We then go on to talk about drains and waste, excessive noise, inspections and photos, landlord's right of entry, and lawns and gardens. So the tenant must keep the drains and sanitary appliances free from obstruction, so don't put anything silly down the toilet. The tenant must not have excessive noise, so just respect your neighbours and please don't have lots of loud parties. We often say that you may as well invite us because we're going to hear about it. Inspections and photographs. So when our team does the inspections at your property, they will be taking photographs. If there is a specific reason that you do not wish the photographs to be taken, then you must tell them at the time. The landlord has a right to enter the property giving 48 hours notice. However, if it is an emergency or a tradesperson needing to enter the property, then a minimum of 24 hours is required. The lawns and gardens. So it is your responsibility, unless we advise otherwise, to keep the lawns mowed and the gardens tidy. Please do not please do not relieve your lawn waste on the garden, behind the garage or anything like that. It must be removed from the property. Light bulbs. We will provide working light bulbs in the property when the tenancy commences, so please leave working light bulbs in at the end. We will be checking. Maximum number of tenants. This means if you say you have 2 adults and 2 children living at the property as permanent residents, then without authorisation you are not permitted to have anybody else move in. If you do want to get a flatmate or something like that, then you must please get authorisation through your property manager before this occurs. We've explained methamphetamine testing. Outgoings. You will obviously pay for your own electricity, internet and any other costs to the property. At the time of occupation, you will be provided with a property inspection report. Now this is the condition of the report when you move in. Please have a look at that. You've got 7 days to come back to us, noting anything that we may have missed. Rent review. So the landlord can review the rent from time to time and may increase the rent in accordance with Section 24 of the Residential Tenancies Act. This may only take effect once every 12 months. Even on a fixed term tenancy, please be aware that we can review the rent and can increase it, but only once every 12 months. Repairs. Obviously, if you discover anything that needs fixing, it's very important that you let your property manager know through our online TAPI maintenance system as soon as possible. If it is an emergency, it's important that you call them directly as soon as you can. Smoking illegal substances. Clearly, we are not allowing any of this at the properties. There is no smoking at all inside a property, and drug use is an illegal act and will not be permitted at the property. Subletting. The tenant will not, without prior permission, part with possession or occupation of that property. That means you cannot go off for a holiday and decide that you're going to let your friends move in instead without first talking to the property manager. There is a big process that we must go through for this first. Strangely enough, the tenant's obligation to leave. That means that when you give us advice that you will be leaving, or we give you advice that you need to vacate the property, then you must by that date have vacated the property. We then move on to some additional terms and conditions. We talk about access cards and keys. Now in most cases we will be giving you keys and perhaps some garage door remotes to enter the property. It is important that you give us any of these back at the end of your tenancy along with any copies. Failure to do so will result in you having to pay for a locksmith and potentially new garage door openers. Access to show prospective buyers. You will allow, with reasonable notice, access for prospective buyers to come in during your tenancy if that's required, and your property manager will speak to you about that further. Alterations, renovations and additions. In relation to this, although there is a change in the law and you can potentially make some alterations or additions to the property, you must ask permission first. Rule is, please advise your property manager what it is. For example, you wanted to hang a a hook on the back of the bathroom door. You would then say you wanted to hang the hook on the back of the bathroom door via an email or a letter if you don't have email. The property manager will look at this and speak to the owner, and they will come back to you with the conditions of this. It may be that you would have to rectify this at the end of the tenancy, or that it could be left up at the end of the tenancy at no expense to the owner. But this is something to speak to your property manager about first before you make any alterations or additions. We then go on to talk about some extra things like laminate and bamboo flooring and how to take care of that, as well as barbecues. Common sense is going to prevail here. Bathroom care again is talking about making sure we're ventilating the property, and of course bathroom fans are now law and they must be used. The bond, we are going to collect the equivalent of 4 weeks rent from you as the bond, and that will be lodged in Wellington until the end of your tenancy. You will receive a copy of that acknowledgement from the bond centre. Carpets at the end of your tenancy, then you must ensure that the carpets are clean and in good condition without any stains. And again, if there is an issue there, your property manager will speak with you. Ceramic and induction hob heating. So we've got a lot of these now, and there are special ways of cleaning them. Have a read of this if that is in your tenancy agreement, and again, speak to your property manager if you're unsure. Cooking, smells and ventilation. Again, a range hood is now a requirement in a rental property, so please use this and ensure that you're ventilating the property to rid any odours that may come from cooking. Earthquake damage. Sometimes we are looking after properties in Canterbury that have got some remaining earthquake damage. If this is the case in your property, you understand and acknowledge that this work is not necessarily going to be rectified during your tenancy. It is pre-existing and you accept the property in that condition. Please be aware the property is safe. However, some of this may just be aesthetic damage that you can see. An email address for service. So if you've provided us with an email address, this means that we can use this to deliver any correspondence to you, as it is an address for service. Again, fire alarms and smoke alarms are spoken about, and please ensure you follow the rules here. A fixed term tenancy will automatically convert to a periodic tenancy unless anything is agreed otherwise. A tenant may, upon a periodic tenancy, give 28 days notice to the landlord if they do wish to vacate. But again, your property manager will speak to you in length about this during your tenancy. Further tenants, again, you are not allowed further tenants in the property before we have given them authorisation. So don't move somebody in and then tell us. It comes completely around the other way first, please. Garden watering. If you have been given a automatic watering system, please ensure it's used, and we do ask you that when you're able to, that you water lawns and gardens to keep them alive during your tenancy. Gas heaters and gas cookers are not permitted at any time inside your rental property. These are dangerous and cause ventilation problems. Gas hot water, if there is hot water supplied, the landlord will be responsible to pay for the bottles. However, the account is to be held in your name and we will reimburse you. Health and safety clause. This means that if there is any health and safety issue that should arise at the property, you will immediately notify your property manager so that they can rectify that for you. Lease break. So a lease break may be granted. However, there is quite a process in this as well, and you can be held responsible for any reasonable costs that we may incur in replacing the tenant. You may introduce a new party to the property manager. However, they will only be agreed to take over your tenancy if they come through our normal due diligence checks, just as you have, and are then approved. Maintenance, again, let us know when there is maintenance at the property. Mattresses on the floor. Please don't put mattresses on the floor. They are to be on a base. If you don't have a base, then a mattress must be lifted every week to ensure there is no damage under the floor. However, our preference is for you not to have one. There is no access to the ceiling cavity in this property for storage at any time, as there is generally insulation in the ceiling and we cannot allow you to potentially move that around. No interference for neighbours. This makes sense. In other words, please don't annoy your neighbours or upset them. If you're having any issues with your neighbours, then again speak to your property manager and we'll see if we can help you at all. rain hoods, extractor fans and heat pumps. Now it's very important that you use these. When it comes to the heat pump, it is actually going to run a whole lot better for you, be more efficient and more economical if you are regularly cleaning the filters, and they recommend every 2 to 4 weeks dependent on the use. Very simple to clean. Your rent will be paid by direct debit and your property manager will be presenting you with a direct debit form. This is our preferred payment method. This means that you don't have to worry about setting anything up. There's no cost incurred. We will do that all for you, and again your property manager will discuss this with you at this time. Shower traps. If there is a shower trap in your shower, please ensure that you are cleaning this regularly. Build up can cause problems and a real smelly mess. So make sure that you clean this out regularly as you clean the shower. The tenant acknowledges if you have looked at this property sight unseen, which means you've sent somebody on your behalf or looked at it over Skype or video, that you are satisfied before signing this tenancy agreement that you are happy to live in the property as it has been presented to you. There will be no going back if you suddenly move into the property and say you don't like it, it doesn't suit your needs. Swimming pools, so unless there is a swimming pool at the property, you are not authorised to put up any type of swimming pool. There are certain council regulations around this which can make it very difficult, so please do not put a swimming pool up. Tenant's insurance. So whilst you may think that a tenant's insurance is only for the contents that you own in the property, in fact it is also for your liability. So a tenant can be held responsible for any careless or accidental damage. So say it was something quite big, like you had had a fire in the kitchen. If it was proved that you caused that through being careless or having an accident, then you could be held responsible. This means that you would have to pay the excess on it or the cost of the repairs, whichever is the least. Now, an excess can be quite high on a rental property, but if you've got insurance, then you'll likely be covered for that, so we highly recommend it. The tenant's confirmation of the ingoing condition report. Again, what you're going to do is confirm that you've had that condition report. You're going to check through it and make sure that you agree with that that we've provided to you. Ventilation, again, really important for your health and the properties to ensure that you ventilate. Please open your curtains, your doors and your windows regularly and use the fans as provided. Vermin. So whilst the landlord will ensure that for the first month at the property, vermin is not in the property. So that would be fleas, rats, mice or anything like the such. After that 1 month period, it may not necessarily be the owner's responsibility to rectify, and it is taken on a case-by-case basis. If you have any problems at all with vermin, please speak to your property manager directly to come up with a solution. Although if you've got a couple of mice running around, certainly pop down some bait or a trap, as this would be your responsibility generally. After that, we're going to advise you if an owner has insurance on the property, and if so, what your liability may be if there is an insurance claim by way of the excess. There will also talk about smoke alarms. From here, this is going to tell you how many smoke alarms in the property and where they're located. After that, we are going to talk to you more about healthy homes. You're going to do some signing, and it's all fairly self-explanatory, and your property manager again will talk you through this. Then we move on to the healthy home statement. Now, we are required by law to provide you with a healthy home statement at the commencement of your tenancy. This does not mean that the property necessarily complies with all components of this. We will then have 90 days to make the property compliant if there is some jobs that need to be done to ensure that. Each property may have some additional clauses introduced to the tenancy agreement, and your property manager will speak to you about this directly. That about wraps it up. You will of course be signing in several places and initialing each page. Your property manager will ensure that you fully understand, as I said, our obligations to you as your agent for the landlord, and of course your obligations to us as a tenant. Thank you for listening into this video. We really look forward to having you in one of our rental properties.